As we barrel towards Christmas, you might be about to make the most of this month's crazy sales days. Perhaps a phone or a gaming device for a young family member makes your shopping list. But before you look or to leave one wrapped under the tree, our parenting expert is along with some things to consider before handing out the technical toys. Anna McKessar is an online course producer with Parenting Place. She's going to talk about some tips for alternatives to smartphones for younger kids, some key steps for parents embarking on a device journey with their children, and how to get good boundaries and online expectations with older children. Do send your questions in 929rnz.co.nz or text them to 2101. Keen on your own views as well as to how things are working in your household. Morena, Anna, great to talk. Thank you.
Morena.
I guess the obvious starting point, and it's always a problematic one, is what kind of age or stage are we thinking about for a child when it comes to that first phone?
Oh man, I so wish there was a really clear, easy answer. That you could say, when your kid is 10, when your kid is 12, when your kid is 14, they're ready. But really, it's a lot more nuanced than that. You want to be thinking about why you're getting your kid a phone or any other kind of device, and then thinking, is the device that I'm looking at going to serve that function? You might be thinking about getting your kid a phone because they're using public transport to get to school and you want to be able to contact them or know where they're at. Or it might be that they're moving between households. If that's the case, do they really need full internet access, social media, access to your credit card? Probably not. There might be some other devices that can do that same job for you without opening up the entire world. And also you're balancing that with where your particular child is at developmentally. Are they able to be responsible? Can they have the conversations with you that you might want to have to prepare them to have that kind of independence and that kind of device? Are they good at listening to the boundaries that you agree to as a whānau? Those kinds of things are the things that you'll be looking at before you pull the pin on handing over something with so much capacity.
You can buy the so-called dumb phones, right, not connected to the internet, but that still doesn't prevent things like sending and receiving photos and stuff. It probably limits some of the greatest risk, right? But yeah, you have options for kind of phasing in the level of device they have.
Absolutely. And if you're buying, your kid is looking to learn how to drive, you don't just buy them a car and hand over the keys and leave them to it. The same would go with, learning to navigate the digital world. We want to give our kids smaller chances to learn and to come alongside us. We want to be talking to them and helping them to understand the risks and what they might do, what our expectations are of them. And we also want to use the tech that's available to us to keep them safe as they start navigating their digital worlds. So we just don't want to throw them into the deep end and hope for the best.
Which means learning, especially in the more complex devices, learning permissions, learning how to turn off certain accesses, really understanding your security settings.
Yeah.
It's kind of where you want to start before you even think about buying the gift. Is where are we at in our household, or where is someone else at if it's someone else's child, in terms of setting up the basic boundaries and the basic online kind of or digital kind of deal in your household.
Yeah, you definitely want to be doing all of this stuff before you hand any devices over. So you're going to be thinking about practical protection. So you're looking at your household filtering, you're looking at the kind of device and what the parental controls and screen time settings are within the device. And then you're looking at the kind of apps that might be available within those devices and then setting it up at that level as well. So there's kind of like 3 layers of practical kind of digital protection, but then you're also thinking about developing your child's internal filters, so the internal understanding about the world that they're embarking on. Can you talk to them about safety online? Can you talk to them about dodgy online content? Have you talked to them about messaging manners, about what your own whānau's expectations are around where the devices are kept, whether they're allowed in bedrooms, which we would really recommend that you would keep, especially at night, devices out of rooms overnight. Just saves a whole world of pain, and kind of setting up some of those expectations before the device is handed over. It's way easier when you have some agreement. It's not just like handing over a set of hard and fast rules that are set in stone, but having these conversations with our kids and coming to an agreement so that when stuff does get off track, which, it will, we all find this with our own device use, that stuff gets off track. It just gives us a really easy benchmark to come back to when we've already started having these conversations and we've already started developing some of that critical thinking in our own kids right from the very, very, very beginning, when they're first starting to watch TV even. We're sort of talking a bit to them about what they're watching and what that might mean. And we just really want to be doing both.
It just occurs to me as you're talking that your greatest negotiating powers is before they've got what they want in terms of the device. 100%. So while they're nagging for it, this is where you've got the most negotiating power to get the boundaries set in place. And we know with kids of a certain age, negotiating is that they're damn good negotiators. But
absolutely.
You mentioned things like, again, understand the settings, the privacy settings, passwords. I mean, to a certain age, you've got the right as a parent to say, sorry, I want your password. That might get negotiated when they're a little bit older. But that's absolutely part of the deal, right?
You're the leader in your own home. We really want to encourage parents that they actually can kind of take the lead with this with their kids. That's not about imposing a bunch of like gnarly rules on them all the time, but it's about just knowing, having confidence in your position in the family and that you can really make some decisions because you understand what's best. Your kids, they don't have the perspective that we have as adults. They don't understand. And so it's really our job to protect them in this space. Like they really need us to help them. And so we kind of can't bury our heads in the sand or go too hands off because they need us more than ever in the digital space. And it's really easy to kind of see them in the corner with their headphones on and not be able to, and not engage with what they're doing. But I actually think that this is a really important parenting arena for us to be upskilled in. We can check on websites like Common Sense Media, that's commonsense.org. They've got heaps of reviews about games, websites, apps that can give you a real sense of whether things are appropriate for your child so that you can kind of have some of that information, like you say, before you're handing it over, because they're really motivated. Kids will agree to all sorts of things if they think it's going to get them what they want. So I've got a 14-year-old and he really wanted a new app that I wasn't super comfy with. And we had about 6 months of negotiation about the things that I was concerned about. We're holding these two quite big things in tension. My concerns about the dangers or the sort of him spending too much of his life online and not enough offline doing all of the awesome growthful things that we want our kids to be doing. And he's got this thing about wanting to be connected with his friends in a different kind of way. And so that period of me and him sort of negotiating some of that stuff was actually really important for both of us, because now we're both on the same page about a lot of things. We've had lots of conversations that we can come back to. And and he is learning step by step about how to navigate.
So are you learning about where and how
absolutely.
he is having his relationships? And again, if you don't have any idea, the gaming world, I don't know if some people realise, the amount of connection and communication that happens on those. And if you don't have a clue about what they're doing on the app they're on or the game they're on, you need to learn as well, because this may be a significant influence and there may be people of significant influence that you want to have on your radar.
Absolutely. Yeah, we sort of don't leave our front doors open to the big wide world and let anyone walk into our home. But sometimes without realising that, we actually are doing that digitally. When we've got open chat functions on our kids' gaming devices, we just think that they're playing Xbox over there. But meanwhile, we don't know who they're chatting to if we haven't looked at those settings. So it's really important to get into your parental control settings, device by device, checking that they're all sorted, so that we're keeping our kids as safe as we can in all of the areas of their lives, but also teaching them as they go, so that as they get bigger and have more autonomy in the world, they're well prepared for the world that they live in.
What that negotiation you had with your 14-year-old, though, reveals is that the absolute no is not necessarily the way to go, because, as I said, you're learning more about his reasons, their reasons for wanting a particular app or to get involved in gaming or whatever. So the
Yeah.
communication is the two-way learning. It's not just about the compromise ultimately, but it's about
Yeah.
you gathering your
Yeah.
intel, as we said. Questions come in. My 12-year-old daughter has a smartphone. I now regret this
hmm
decision and understand the
hmm
risks. How can I take a step back and get her a basic phone without too much upsets?
Yeah, I think this is so tricky for all of us. I've got three kids at different ages, a teen, a tween, and a primary age kid, and my perspective has shifted over the last few years. And things that I thought were okay at one level, I've changed my mind on, and it's a tricky thing that we have to navigate as parents. But I think we need to be okay and just really back ourselves when it comes to resetting boundaries. I mean, we have to be able to do this in a digital world. It is constantly changing. There is new information all the time. So we need to be able to have confidence that we can have a reset. I think it has to happen in relationship. It has to happen with conversation, but you can also back yourself as being kind of the leader in your family. I have a almost 12-year-old, so I totally get how tricky that can be. I think it's much easier to frame protective kind of decisions as that, as opposed to hard lines. It's like, I love you so much and I care about you so much that I'm willing for you to be a little bit cross with me for a season, and because I want to protect you. Let's have a look at what you've got and why these are my concerns. And what we might be able to do for you to be able to connect with your mates in a cool way offline, what I can facilitate for you. Maybe you might be looking at giving them access to the ability to message their friends one-on-one, but not in a group chat situation. Um, and then say, hey guys, this is not a decision that we make for the rest of your life. This is something that we revisit in time as you develop more skills and more maturity. And, you might let your kid listen to a family Spotify thing at home, but not in their ears on the way to school because, you feel like they're not ready for that yet. Like, there's all sorts of middle ground rules that we can kind of talk to our children with as we go.
Another question for you. We set up a written contract for our 12-year-old son and we agreed the terms together, and he had to understand the consequences if he broke the rules. We all signed it and made it really clear about what the parameters were before he got a phone. Get it in writing, eh? Good, good point.
Oh, great. It's great advice. Like we have a really cool template on our website. It's a phone agreement. I mean, and we would really suggest that parents come up with what really suits their whānau's values and what suits the needs of their household. But it's a really good starting point. So you can sort of talk through all of the things. What are your expectations around data? What are your expectations about the time that phones are out? Do you have them? Are they off the table at meal times? Is it after dinner phone free? Do you have them out of bathrooms? Do you, does the parents, are the parents also modeling this kind of behavior and able to stick to these kind of rules as well? That's something that can be quite challenging as a parent, to recognize that your own screen time use might not be the greatest example to your kids. I know that for me, that's a real tricky one as well, that I'm constantly managing. But yeah, when you sit down and come up with an agreement together and the kids have a chance to talk to you and agree with you, it's so much easier when things come unstuck because you've already had these conversations, you've already agreed on it. And you can say to your kid, hey, you seem to be really struggling to stick with those boundaries that we've discussed. What can we do to rearrange things so it's easier for you to stick with those boundaries next week? Instead of coming in like with a big punitive, no more phone ever again, which can be really distressing for kids. You can kind of come to it from this, hey, how can we support you to make better decisions here? It's not working. What sort of things do we need to do to reset this so it's more achievable for you to use your device in the ways that we've agreed?
There's also the issue of the technology itself offering more options
Yeah.
for parents. Tracking tools on phones are a good example.
hmm hmm
Some parents like to set and forget, and they're probably tracking their 30-year-olds still, I imagine. But the other thing, some of the newer phones I know are coming in and you can actually connect them to your phone, and if a disturbing keyword comes up, you're alerted to what's
Yeah.
happening on your kid's phone. There's all sorts of things there. But as those
Yeah.
teens are getting into that age where if they don't have an entitlement to privacy, you want to respect them at least knowing
Absolutely.
what you're doing, because that's a trust matter. Even if you're still saying I'm the parent and this is what's happening, dude, it's a trust matter that they know. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we don't want our kids to feel like we're ever tricking them. So if you're using location, I mean, with a younger child, it's a little bit different. I think it's a bit more of a given that lots of parents with younger children, that's not even, you know, but we would still tell our kids that that's there. If you've got an older child, that would be a conversation that you'd be having. You might be saying, "Hey, I'm happy for you to have this degree of independence. Um, this is what I'm concerned about, and this is why we'd have this." You might make a reciprocal thing where you're like, "Okay, if I can see where you are, but you can see where I am too. This is just so we can meet each other." We don't want to turn stuff on without telling our teens, and that's a surefire way to turn them off, and to have them pushing against us. We really want to be coming alongside them and helping them to make these good decisions, and so we're really coming in as a coach and less of a dictator when it comes to that kind of thing.
Another question. Seeking advice on when your child's other parent is much looser around tech, and especially when you're not together. It's the age-old, can you get consistency? Hey, and this, I
So
imagine, is a
tricky.
really tricky one. Yeah.
So tricky, and a lot of the answers can come off pat and aren't necessarily achievable for everybody. The idea that we both parents are really wanting the best for their kids. And I'm sure that this parent is doing everything that they can to have helpful conversations with their parents, with their co-parent that's in a different household. But yeah, I think coming up with an agreement around some of the settings on the devices. There are some tools, things like Safe Surfer, that you can set up on phones that keep the filters on iPads or phones or computers, regardless of where that device is. So the kid is getting that layer of protection no matter where they are. They are really helpful tools. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's tricky, and it's something that needs to happen in conversation. And hopefully, one would hope that both parents really do have the child's best interests in mind. We have a digital parenting course that's available. I mean, maybe sending a message to the other parent saying, "Hey, I've seen this," or an article that you've read and saying, "Hey, these are my concerns, and this is why. Can we come up with some boundaries that we agree in both places?" But yeah, acknowledging that this is a really, really tricky issue, and there are some things that you can achieve and other things that are just really difficult. Again, that comes down to lots of conversations with your child, and building their own internal filters, their own critical thinking, um, and making sure that you are a really safe place for them to talk to about online harm, or about any questions that they have, or any kind of social wobbly navigations that they're kind of encountering online, so that they can unpack some of these tricky things with you when
This
they are
one.
in your home.
This question's really interesting. I'm going to have to ask you to try and be as succinct as you can, Anna, but this comes at things from a different way. It's about music. I have a 13-year-old girl whose phone I am reining back in. I presume she's meaning phone use. So hard as a solo
Mm-hmm.
mum. How many hours on Spotify? I remember having a Walkman and loving it. We've talked about
Mm-hmm.
earbuds, which I guess means
Mm-hmm.
remember what the Walkman did to your ears? That was a shocker. We've talked about earbuds, but otherwise, I guess she's meaning, is there any other issue with having music on all the time? I mean, it's for such a visual generation. They're really big listeners, this generation too, aren't they?
They really are, and they're often doing multiple things at once. Um, and also, the other thing about Spotify these days and other music apps is that not only is it audio, but we're also getting video, we're getting lyrics coming up. So there's actually a whole nother level of info coming at our kids. Um, yeah, I mean, it's not screen time if it's just in your ears, is it? So there's that. But yeah, I mean, it's tricky. I don't have a clean, clear answer on that one. But yeah, all of these things you're holding in tension and trying to navigate, and it's hard for parents. And I think our advice would be, um, don't be afraid to talk it through with your kids. Don't be afraid to take the lead. If something feels off, it probably is off.
30 seconds left for this one, because we're talking about parents who are the bosses in their household, but of course there's grandparents, there's uncles and aunties, there's friends.
Mm-hmm.
Is it a wise
Mm-hmm.
thing to talk to the parent about buying the device before you, or the game, or the
Oh,
app.
please, please, please do. Please do. You don't want to put a parent in a tricky situation where you're handing over something that they're just simply not ready for. So 100% please check with parents or caregivers before you hand anything across to their kids. That
Appreciate
would
your time.
be the kind of thing to do.
Appreciate your time. Anna McKessar, who is online course producer with Parenting Place. Want to learn more about their courses? I'm sure there'll be a link on the webpage, rnz.co.nz/9 to noon.